All right, welcome back to another edition of the Rodcast. Sorry about the late start, guys, and also sorry that we're in a different location. Last minute, we had to move, had to change. We got some stuff happening, got people moving furniture at the house, got contractors in the backyard doing stuff. So we got to freestyle. We got to improvise. We must adapt and adjust on the fly, all right? The original game plan that we had was inadequate. It did not work, all right? That's what happens, all right? That's okay. Football, like life. All right, doesn't always go according to plan. So you got to adjust on the fly, and you still got to get the damn job done. All right, so appreciate all you guys joining us. What's up? All right, man, Chris, first in the house. Oh, two Chris's back to back. Chris and then my man CB back to back. Appreciate that. Anthony, Allen, Josh, appreciate you guys, man. It means a lot. All right, we're trying to get right into it. Actually, while I was multitasking, moving into a different place, into the extra bedroom in the house, I was also listening to Sark's media availability because he had a media availability day. They got posted a little bit late because I wanted to make sure I listened to the media availability so I can give you guys my thoughts right before. So it's all good. We are ready to roll, baby. I'm happy to be here with you guys. I'm happy that y'all are here with me on the Rodcast. If you got anything you want to ask about in the chat, just hit me up. Random questions. It don't even matter. Whatever it is, I'm in that kind of mood. All right. It's a freak flag, feel good, fake it till you make it. Ric Flair, woo! Football Friday edition of the Rodcast. And yeah, my wife probably didn't appreciate me just yelling right there. I had to get it in. All right. That's it. Now we're done. We also have random people will be in the house because they are putting together furniture they're bringing in. And then there's going to be a lot going on. So I apologize for the scenery, for the background. I ain't even got the 2-1 up there. We still going to get it done. All right. There's a great quote I was given by a coach about football and life. He was like, football, like life, is a constant struggle between what we want to be and what we need to be in order to survive. Everybody wants to be something, but then you need to be something. All right. And there's a constant struggle between what we want to be and what we need to be. And that's life and that's football. Every coach has got an ideal team that he wants to be. But the reality is you got a certain assets and you got certain, personnel to work with, and it's not always ideal. You got to find a way to get the job done. Get the job done. Robert says, want to meet the wife. Yeah, I don't know. Hey, she's 7+ months pregnant. Hell, might be closer to 8. I don't know. We'll see. You know what? That's a good idea. I'm going to ask her. I'll ask her. All right, Robert. I said I was up for anything. I will ask wifey if she'll come on and meet the Rodcast Nation. How about that? All right. All I can do is ask. If she can, she can decide to decline emphatically. But that's all I can do is ask her. Hey, Jeremiah. Hey, coming in from Lubbock. Hey, we appreciate you guys, man. I know y'all getting inside info here, man. You know how your boy. I hook everybody up with all the knowledge I have about Texas. So you Red Raiders coming in, y'all got inside info. All right. Danger Zone, Friday Wifey edition. Hey, anything could happen. East A says neither safety is really suited as a true center fielder, but I know Texas is looking to play a lot more man defense this year. Think Derek Williams sees the field some when we want to feature man free. That's interesting. You know what? Hell, we can just start there with you guys' thoughts. Josh, I'll get to what Sark had to say today that I thought was interesting. I thought there were 2 elements of the press conference that stood out to me that I want to get to. So we'll do that. But getting to East A's point about the safeties, it's actually something that I wanted to get into anyway. So I'm glad that you opened it up because Texas believes they have 3 starting safeties. They've talked about this. They've remarked about it. They believe they got, of course, Jaron Thompson. He's the elder statesman. They got Jalen Catalon coming in, who's just this really high ceiling safety. If he can stay healthy, I'll knock on some wood a little bit. If he can stay healthy, I mean, Texas will have one of the better safeties in the country. They'll have one of the better safety cores in the country if he stays healthy. And then they got Keaton Crawford. As a matter of fact, one of the things that stood out to me about what Sark said is that Sark, okay, I apologize, Jeremiah. I apologize. All right. I said Jeremiah was a Red Raider. And you know what? I was wrong about that one. And you know what? I'll admit what I was wrong. I apologize, Jeremiah. He ain't no Red Raider. Nope. All right. Bleed orange. Just happened to live there. That is true. And you know what? Good for you. You representing there. Hey, that's hard to represent in Lubbock. All right. Can't get your grades up. Get your guns up. I kid the Red Raiders. I'm just joking. We have some fun. It's a Friday. But getting back to the safeties, they believe they got 3 starting safeties pretty much. That's what they've told us anyway. We'll see if that translates into the games. And I do think I've heard Michael Griffin say, legendary lifetime Longhorn Michael Griffin say that he thinks that essentially Derek Williams could be one of the best DBs in DBU history. He's got that kind of ceiling as a player. So they may be fast tracking him, but right now they believe they got 3 starting safeties. So I don't know if they're going to force a young Derek Williams on the field. Now, if Keaton Crawford isn't as good as they expected, or if Jalen Catalon, God forbid, ends up with an injury, then you could see it in the rotation. Jaron Thompson is the elder statesman. So, I mean, that's a guy that he right now should be the one who's kind of the stabilizing force in that secondary. He's been there longer than anybody in the system, longer than anybody else too. But here's my question. Honestly, I wonder if Texas at one point will start to run some of the 3 high safety defenses. They do believe they have 3 safeties. One of the big open competitions right now in training camp, and I was listening to see on the media availability, if somebody asked Sark about it, they did not, is the field corner spot, right? Terrence Brooks, Malik Muhammad, the Gavin Holmes. Hey, happy Friday, Fred. Appreciate you joining us, right? And Alan, I'll hit that up about the breakout players too. But, those guys, you got 3 guys that are competing for that spot. I think it's going to end up being Terrence Brooks, but it could end up being somebody else. That's still an open competition. Every other spot in the secondary is pretty much solidified. I think Jalen Catalon will get the start with 2 safeties over Keaton Crawford, but I think they plan on using Keaton Crawford a lot too and rotating those guys. And I wonder, for me, that's the mystery. I don't know who's going to be that field corner. And that's important because that's one spot. If you don't figure out, or at least you don't have contingency plans in case your first option doesn't work out, that can be a serious liability and weakness on that Texas defense. And if it is one of the contingency plans for me, what I would do as a defensive coordinator, I might start using more the three high safety defense. If you really like Keaton Crawford, you love Jalen Catalon, Jaron Thompson is your elder statesman, Jahdae Barron can move out to that field corner. If you don't trust one of those guys, I think they will. I'm talking about contingency plans. Move that guy out, and you can run your 3 high safety defense. And you don't even have to run literally what has become known as the 3 high, 3 down safety defense. You don't have to run. We talked about that being the schematic or kind of the schematic kryptonite, all right, of Steve Sarkisian. Now, you don't have to necessarily run, what Iowa State, TCU, K-State are running. Hell, Dan Quinn uses 3 safeties more than anybody else in the NFL. And he doesn't necessarily use the same principles as the teams in the Big 12 and how they're doing it. There are some similarities. And hell, Dan Quinn is one of your coaching mentors. He was your coach in Atlanta. You had him come to speak at a clinic. You could use 3 safeties, and you can use them in the way the Cowboys do. The Cowboys use 3 safeties more than anybody else in the NFL. They see around 40%, 40+% of their snaps. They got 3 safeties on the field. And nobody uses the 3 safeties more than the Dallas Cowboys. I just say if you need tips on how to deploy 3 safeties, the Cowboys are a great place to research. If you go look at the Cowboys used a lot of dime. Let's say you do find out that you like Terrence Brooks or Gavin Holmes or Malik Muhammad at that field corner, you still can run a lot of dime. And depending on situationally, if you have 6 DBs you trust, and you got 3 safeties and you have 3 corners. The Cowboys, I love the Cowboys defense. I'm sorry if I keep referencing the Cowboys defense. It's my favorite defense to study. It's schematically just so compelling. what Dan Quinn is on. He is, in terms of the cutting edge conceptually, schematically of defense in the NFL. I think Dan Quinn is the foremost leader in terms of cutting edge defensive football in the NFL. I think on the offensive side of the ball, I'm a Shanahan fan, as you guys know. Kyle Shanahan, I think he's that guy offensively. So let me give you some Cowboys stats real quick about the dime. The Cowboys play dime defense, 6 defensive backs, 4th most in the NFL. They run 3-2-6, which is just see man, East 8 talking about 3-2 dime. Definitely seems like a package, no doubt. The Cowboys run 3. Me talking about getting some research material from the Cowboys about utilizing the defensive backs, 3 safeties, and even dime. They run 3-2-6 the most of any team in the NFL. Nobody runs the 3-2 dime package, all right, more than the Cowboys. And they have the fewest snaps in the NFL out of base defense, which is these days basically a combination of your front 7 being actually, being 7 defensive linemen, linebackers, like 7 of those guys. That's kind of what ends up being a base when you play fewer than 5 defensive backs. Anytime you're getting the 5+ DBs, you're in the sub packages. All right, that's when you're getting your nickel, your dime, your quarters. Still don't understand why quarters is 7 DBs. Dime is 6 DBs, but forget it. We're not getting deep into that. My point is, I think Texas this year, so we're talking about safety, if all goes well, you find your field corner, whoever that is. I think it's Terrence Brooks, could be Malik Muhammad, could be Gavin Holmes, whoever it is that wins that job. They're going to earn it. And your safety stay healthy. Knock on wood. You got a dime package, baby. That's pretty nice situationally. Really nice. They can lock down, and it's really diverse. And that ATX Big Rich, appreciate you joining us. I think that could be really nice for Texas. But if you don't have the field corner you trust, remember you can always move Ja'Day Barron out there, increase his draft stock tremendously. Looking at his versatility, and use them 3 safeties if they stay healthy. Yeah, I know it's a progression of coins. It's just bothersome because it started with the nickel with 5 DBs. That was the whole point of it, and they're just like, we got to continue the progression. Okay, so here's something that concern. I want to get back to the three safety thing because I'm going to get back to it later on today. But that was a good question. And breakout players. Somebody asked about breakout players. It's tough because with your definition of breakout players, everybody's got a different definition, right? I'm gonna be somebody that hasn't really solidified themselves as a key consistent playmaker. Everybody's hoping it's Alfred Collins. Everybody's hoping it's Alfred Collins. I want that 6 pence package. No, just something, that little OCD thing always bothers me. Like, hey, what's the reason for that? And no DB coach will give you a good reason. They give what East 8th. That's basically the basic explanation as to why you go from nickel to dime to quarters. But anyway, it's one of those things that just kind of randomly bothers me. Oh, yeah, it is 316, and OU still sucks. We all get that. No doubt. That's always the case, no matter what damn time it is. But breakout players, I think they're hoping Alfred Collins is that guy. I think they're hoping – no worries, Trey. You're good. I think they're hoping Alfred Collins is that guy. I think they're hoping – I'm hoping – honestly, I don't think Jaron Thompson's had a breakout year. He's consistent. But this is a breakout year. I'm ready for him to have a breakout year. I love what he said yesterday or early this week in the media availabilities about – I'll get to that, CB. I appreciate that. I'll get to that but the media availabilities, he's talked about watching more film, describe essentially what I describe, what I term as being a football investigator, somebody picking up on the clues. He talked about the pre-snap diagnosis, talked about having all the DBs over to watch film in his theater room. I think he's primed too for a breakout year. And he talked about making more plays on the ball, and we're hearing that he's making more plays on the ball. I'd be disappointed if Jaron Thompson didn't have a breakout year. He's ready to peak. He's trending in the right direction. And yes. He said, I think his communication was responsible for a lot of why last year's secondary played so much better. That was a kind of a breakout for Thompson. That's true. You could say that. I wanted to see it statistically, but you're right. He even prided himself on that remarking about that in the media availability as well. He said, no, I like the way we're talking. I want to give my guys head ups and alerts. I always say good defense is a very talkative, communicative defense, because what you have is a lot of football investigators on the field, and they're constantly talking to each other. Hey, it's my man Ricky B. Ricky Brennis. Hey, what's going on, dog? That's my dog right there, y'all. He's got plenty of nicknames. They call him Softball Ricky about sports talk radio back in the day, but that's my man. Hey, Ricky B, I appreciate you, man. That's my dog. And congratulations too. He's like me. He's got a little one on the way. Another one, by the way. So congrats to you and wifey, man. We got to kick it soon. All right. I know you're busy. Hey, Pretty Ricky, that's what they called him. I know you're busy, but hey, we got to kick it. You know that. All right. I was talking to wifey about you yesterday, actually. That's strange that she hit me up. All right. So getting back to it, though, I think for Jerry Thompson, I want to see him make the plays on the ball. All right. I want to see him make them plays on the ball. So I'm going to still put Jerry Thompson in that category, even though you're right. His maturity and his development, he's on the right trajectory. Somebody else on defense. And, this is interesting. I was talking to Jeff Ketchum about this too earlier when I was on with Chad and Jeff on the House Divided. We were talking about Quentin Jammer and how Quentin Jammer, although an elite player, didn't make a lot of plays on the ball. First of all, teams didn't throw a lot at him because, why throw at Quentin Jammer when you can throw at Rod Babers? the other corner. I've been that guy. Trust me, I played on the other side of Quentin Jammer and Nathan Vasher. So you ain't going to throw at Quentin Jammer. He's a top 10 pick. You ain't going to throw at Nathan Vasher because he leads the DBU, University of Texas, all-time interception. He's a playmaking ball hawk. Nasty Nate was just that. He was nasty. And you don't want to mess with that. So those are the corners I played opposite of. Come on. Exactly. So I got a lot of action. I got a lot of action because teams at the Wild decided, no, we're staying away from those guys. And that was why they were wise to do so. But he didn't make a lot of plays on the ball because teams didn't throw at him, and he played with his back to the ball a lot. He's a technician. I was a technician. I wasn't a ball hawk. I was a technician. Some guys can be both. Some guys are more ball hawks than anything else. They have to work on the fundamentals to become more of a sound technician at their respective position. But you got to have ball hawks in your secondary. Nathan Vasher was ours, and Michael Huff came after him. We had one, Dakari Pearson. Dakari Pearson was a nasty. It's just a really good safety. He actually played quarterback in high school, then transitioned. But we had guys who prioritized the ball. I prioritized my man. Like I did my job, which is, it's a sign up in Belichick's locker room. Do your job. 3 words. Do your job. All right. And I did my job. I defended the receiver. But some guys go above and beyond their job. Their calling is to go get the football. That is what they do their job, but they have the ability to go above and beyond. And you better have those kind of guys, those havoc players on your defense. And I think for some guys, like I said, you can be an elite technician too. But I think for Texas, Ryan Watts, I think he's more of the elite technician. He's going to be kind of lending toward that way. That's why Jalen Catalon is so important. Jerry Thompson taking his game to the next level is so important because you're missing some of those ball hawks. You lost Deshaun Jameson, ball hawk. You lost DeMarvion Overshown, ball hawk, havoc player, wreaked havoc, just made splash plays for defense. You need guys to replace them making splash plays. Those are the guys you're hoping become breakout players on defense. And that's got to be Alfred Collins. I hope it's Alfred Collins. Hell, it could be, we hope it's anybody, but that's the guys who are trending the right way. Jerry Thompson is trending the right way to have that breakout campaign. And I guess Jadae Barron already had his breakout year. And last year, he was awesome. And I do think Texas food that Brooks is going to start this year. That's my opinion. But I'm a little bit biased. All right. He got a chance to hang out with his pops, hung out with an Aggie. Chet Brooks, he's a guy that played DB at the highest levels in the NFL. And, he's the one that came up with the wrecking crew term. Right? And he's a footwork DB specialist. So all the nuances of playing the defensive back that I'm still learning, that it took me years to acquire. Terrence Brooks has been learning them since he was a toddler. His dad's been kind of teaching him all those fundamentals. That's why his footwork is so nice, because it's natural and organic. So that's, I think he could win. He's going to win the spot, but that's an open competition right now. And speaking of ball hawks, I think Malik Muhammad is one of them ball hawks, at least from the first scrimmage. Got an interception, forced fumble. You got to have a healthy mix of both, because ball hawks oftentimes take chances. They take risks. They're going after the ball. And then you need guys like Rod B. You need guys like Quentin Jammer. You need the stabilizing forces on the defense. They do their job. They're sound, dependable, and consistent. And I wish I had the ability to go after the ball all the time. I did a few times. But most of the time, it was me playing through my man to go get the ball. When Nathan Vasher, when the ball left the quarterback's hands, he already started distancing himself from the receiver and making a play on the ball. And I said this on the show earlier. I actually used to play the eyes of the receiver. Oftentimes I didn't even utilize what they call the look and lean, where you would lean into the receiver, feel him, and then you could look back for the football, pin him to the sideline. Oftentimes I would look at the receiver because I could get lost. You know what I mean? And the guy could try. I'm 5'9". You got a big body receiver. Hey, you can try to moss Rod B. I ain't trying to get mossed. And the best way not to get mossed for me, and like I said, didn't have great hands. Right? All right. You know what I mean? I had great hands in high school. I don't know what happened to me in college, but listen, I know myself as a player. So hey, I'm not trying to misjudge the ball. So I play the hands of the receiver. You play hands, I play eyes through the hands. Eyes of the receiver will get really big when the ball is coming, when it gets close. Eyes get big, facial expression changes, hands go up. You got 4 or 5 different signals telling you ball's coming. Ball is coming. In the NFL, they do practice hands up at the last minute, like running and getting up at the last minute, and they practice relaxed faces. Not so that you as a DB, you learn whatever technique fits you. Ball hawks are different. They're not going to do that. They're not worried about the man as much. Ball is priority. I was always man is priority. They were ball. And like I said, Jalen Ford, ball. Jalen Ford's trying to get the ball. If the ball carrier is just another impediment to their ability to go get the damn ball. That's how they think. That's how Derek Johnson thought. That's why he came in like raking at the ball with that tomahawk chop move, because he was thinking about, hold up, I'm chasing the ball. I'm not chasing the man. Y'all chasing the ball carrier. I'm chasing the ball. I love those guys. And like I said, those guys are programmed to do that. It's innate. It's natural from their youth. I don't think you can train that. That's one thing you can't train, you can't teach. I think some guys are natural pass rushers. You can improve a skill. Some guys got that naturally, man. I play with enough of them. I know it. I seen them when they first got to 40 acres. Caden Stearns was like that. Man, Caden Stearns was naturally a ball hog. He was going after the ball. Some guys want the ball. They don't. Like I said, ball carrier, receiver, that's just another obstacle on my way to go get the damn ball to make a play on it. And like I said, I never thought like that. Wasn't really my thing. Issei said, I talked to Akina one time going into your senior year. He said, you're the best tactician he ever coached. I appreciate that. He said, yeah, I asked Coach Akina every time I talk to him, am I still on he has a tape, a fundamental technique tape, like the greatest technique that he's ever witnessed, covering a route or whatever it may be. And he has all of his great players on there, guys from back his time at Arizona, guys at UT. And I was like, Coach, am I still on the tape? He's like, oh, you're still on the tape. Baby, you're still on the tape, man. You're still on the tape. That's my dog. I love Coach Keene. But I was a tactician. I was a technician. I could think the game through, and I had, the technique down, hand placement and bump and run coverage, footwork. But I couldn't do all that and think about the ball. And I admired those guys who could. Yeah, Derek Johnson had a signature move where he would go after the ball. He did that as a freshman. We started teaching it to other defenders because we were like, that's a damn good move when he's doing the punch the ball out. So you're right, CB. That's exactly what he did. It's amazing. Some said, why do they call that ball strip in the NFL the peanut strip? I swear Derek Johnson started that strip. He did. I don't know when it started, Texas fool, but Derek Johnson did it naturally. Nobody at Texas taught him that. He was doing that. I guarantee we got some high school highlights of Derek Johnson doing that. Guarantee. I mean, CB went through a question. That Robbie played with two DBs who, in my opinion, on the Mount Rushmore of DBU. Nasty Nate and Huff Daddy. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Nasty Nate and Huff Daddy are they're on mine. They're on my DBU Mount Rushmore. Honestly, to fill it out is probably Huff Daddy. And this is the thing, man. It's crazy because you got to disrespect somebody on the DBU Mount Rushmore, right? Because Nathan Vasher's the all-time interception leader with Noble Doss. Then you got the two Thorpe Award winners, Aaron Ross, Huff Daddy. Then you got Jerry Gray, right? The original Jerry Curl, Jerry Gray, one of the founding fathers of DBU. And then, oh man, you got Johnny Johnson. Johnny Johnson got to be on there too. I mean, you got to put Johnny Johnson was a monster. That DBU Mount Rushmore, man, yeah, it's tough. I would put Jerry Gray on there. I'm going to put Johnny Johnson there because I ain't going to disrespect the old school. I'm going to go Nathan Vasher over Noble Doss, even though Noble Doss is a beast. Wow. And I'll go Huff Daddy. Aaron Ross, that's disrespectful. I admit the disrespect. And then Jammer. And then, yeah, I'll admit this disrespect, man. It's. I feel bad even coming out with a list. I feel bad. It's because you got to do somebody dirty to make. That's just it's such a crime. It's such a you know what I mean. It's such a travesty to have to leave off. I don't know. Either it'd be Aaron Ross, a Thorpe Award winner, off of your DBU list. Now they didn't have the Thorpe Award when Johnny Johnson and Jerry Gray were out there. They probably would have won the Thorpe too. And then Earl Thomas. Thank you. I'm missing. See, I'm with you. It's a fool's errand. I'm not even going. Like I said, we ain't going to get deep into it because it is, man. I actually once did the all-time DBU rankings. I had to put myself. I think I want to say I ended up around 20 or outside the top 20 when I did the all-time DBU rankings. I did it based on accomplishments and what they did at Texas. I might have to break this out one day for y'all. And I remember I need to update it. And the all-time DBU rankings, I believe your boy was, I think I was close. I was like between 19 and 21. I'm not sure. I got to go back and look at it. That's where I was. That's how I was an All-American. That DBU list is those rankings are deep. So, all right. Let's get into something that Sark talked about, the media availability, that it got me a little paranoid. Someone says, he says, see, you would have to have made the quarters coverage, top 25. I made the top 25, but I think I got bumped out of the top 20. I think I ended up bumping myself out of the top 20 because I went and looked at it. There was just too many dogs on that list, man. In fact, we're going to do that. We'll do that before the season starts. All right, we'll do that. I'll go back and revisit my all-time DBU rankings. And, y'all going to be upset. Some of y'all going to be mad. But I did the research. We're talking about statistical achievements. I did on accolades, conference honors, All-American honors, all that. Your boy went deep down the rabbit hole. And I'll update that. Matter of fact, that may be my project for this weekend. And I'll have y'all ready. Abel says Gideon was a dog too. Most games, right? Yeah, most games start by any other DB in DBU history was Blake Gideon. And honestly, Earl Thomas will tell you, man, Earl Thomas, a lot of them picks, hey, you had a quarterback of the defense, Blake Gideon, getting everybody lined up. The air traffic controller after that, hey, Earl Thomas instincts took over because ball hawk. Okay, so this is what concerned me a little bit. Because there's a question asked at the media availability about how well the defensive line is playing. We even heard from Jaron Thompson. He said the defensive line is playing nasty and violent, making the job on the back end for the back end guys a whole lot easier, which I can attest. No doubt it does. When I had Casey Hampton and Sean Rogers on the D-line, I had never had such a relaxed time playing cornerback in my life. It was, I ain't gonna lie, though, I was a young cornerback. I was starting as a sophomore or something. Man, that was an easy job because essentially my internal clock just had to get to 2.5 to 3 seconds. And if I could just cover a guy, get a good jam, reroute him for 2.5 to 3 seconds, that was pretty much that means that Casey Hampton and Sean Rogers was in your face. In your face. Oh, we had Aaron Humphrey. There's some dogs. Cedric Woodard, who also was a really good pass rusher. So based on how well your D-line is pressuring the opposing quarterback, oh man, you really can, as a DB, you can take a lot more chances. You know the ball may have to come out quickly. You just, you have a lot more confidence in coverage because those guys are making the quarterback's life hell. Oh, Texas fool. We had a Casey Hampton trying to tribute show not too long ago, man. I'll give you the Casey Hampton stat that still to this day is mind-blowing. He led Texas in tackles from the D tackle position 2 years in a row. Twice. And he's on the Pittsburgh Steelers all-time team, a team that is probably best known for great defenses, more so than any other franchise in the NFL, and he's on the all-time team. Casey freaking Hampton, man. Oh, I love me some Big Hamp. I love me some Big Hamp. Isn't that crazy? Like, how often does that happen? Would somebody please do the research and tell me at the elite levels of football, college and pro, how often a D tackle leads the team in tackles? Like, what the hell? And we won a scrub defense. We had good play. He played right next to a second-round pick. He was a first-round, second-round pick in Sean Rogers. D.D. Lewis played in the league for a long time. He's a linebacker behind him. Sue probably was. You're right. But the double Sue was in the Heisman. He was a Heisman finalist. Nobody made Casey Hampton a Heisman finalist. Maybe he should have been. Definitely one of the best football players in college football at the time. Yeah, I would love somebody to do the study on how oftentimes at the college or the pro level a D tackle led the team in tackles. And then go how many did it twice in a row. And that dude was underappreciated. He might be the most underappreciated great in Texas football history. Think about it. How often do we talk about Casey Hampton and how awesome he was? Guys, Mac Brown would have to remove him from some practice reps. There were times at practice where he was just wreaking so much havoc, destroying the plays, that basically Mac Brown was like, Casey, come over here to the side. We got to get some work done. We got to you over here just wrecking the plays. The quarterback can't get anything done. You can't even get a handoff because you wrecking. No, let's just go sit on the side for a while. Yeah, I'm with you. Texas, college football, NFL. I've never even heard of that. D tackles leading their team. We got to go check it. And the Ndamukong Suh did. I don't even think Ndamukong Suh led the team in tackles that year. I don't know if he did. He was a monster. That was one of the greatest defensive seasons for any player in the history of college football. I remember that. Trust me, all Longhorn fans, we remember. We watched it in the Big 12 title game. We watched him ragdoll Colt McCoy, and we watched Texas double team and triple team the Ndamukong Suh to no avail. They couldn't stop him. It was, after a while, as a Longhorn fan, you couldn't even be frustrated, mad. You were just wild. You were like, I can't believe it. He's doing it again. He's doing it every damn play. They can't stop him. To this day, I'm sure that Colt McCoy every now and then wakes up in cold sweats. To think about a Ndamukong Suh. Sue. Sue is just, that was crazy. Yes, the O-line was really bad. That was the deterioration of the O-line by that point. We saw, remember, earlier that year, didn't they play Rice earlier that year? And Rice had a goal line stand against Texas where Texas couldn't even, if I'm not, maybe it was a goal line stand or a fourth down stand against Texas in the short yardage where Texas basically couldn't convert against Rice. Yeah, there you go, John. Latest team in tackles. 08-09. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Sue was a beast. So I wasn't sure because I hadn't looked at it. But see, somebody should track that. Let's go track that. Somebody try to figure out how often. I would love for every fandom to do the research and find out how often a defensive tackle led their team in tackles. And Ndamukong Suh was a force of nature. I mean, that dude, he should have won the Heisman. I forget who won the Heisman the year he did, but that's all it meant. That Ndamukong Suh probably should have won the Heisman that year. Okay. What is Collins still in this year? Everybody's hoping Colin Simmons has that. No, sorry, Alfred Collins. Alfred Collins. I apologize. Alfred Collins has that type of awakening. He's not going to be in the Ndamukong Suh. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying that he now has a breakout year because he has no physical limitations. Physically, he's got all the raw materials, all the measurables. His issues are the intangibles, the intensity, the ferocious physicality, to the desire to impose your will on an opponent. And they're waiting for that from Alfred Collins for a while. CB says the 2009 Big 12 championship game was a foreshadowing of what was coming in 2010. Yeah. Ingram won it. Yeah, and the Ndamukong Suh should have won that thing. That's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy, man. The Ndamukong Suh should have won that thing. Longhorn fans would all voted for the Ndamukong Suh. Like, yeah, the Ndamukong Suh. Yeah. One man wrecking crew for real. Okay, let's talk about something that concerned me though with the media availability. So Sark was asked about the defensive line dominating practices at times, and that makes sense. T'Vondre Sweat, guy who's going to play in the NFL. Byron Murphy, best pass rusher on the team. Outside of he and I believe that it was it was the young linebacker, I believe, that Sark said was also the best pass rusher on the team. But he mentioned Byron Murphy as the best pass rusher on the team. So you're talking about the guys the best pass rusher on the team. Also mentioned among the freaks. All right. He said that the Bruce Feldman top 100 freaks in college football, he was on that list. So he's a freak. And the interior D-line, and that's what Sark mentioned. He mentioned specifically the interior D-line is playing really, really well. So I'm assuming that means T'Vondre Sweat. That means Byron Murphy. Alfred Collins, who he mentioned also, that had a really good scrimmage, and Alfred Collins was playing really well. Probably means Trill, right? It's Trill Carter, the transfer from Minnesota. Probably he was thrown in there too. And that's not a shock because they were really deep last year at that position. They're just deep again. Vernon Broughton, throw him out there too. So the concern is that when you're practicing against one another is that the defensive line, of course, could be playing at a really high level or practicing at a really high level in a dominant force. But also that can mean that the offensive line is having trouble, all right, blocking the interior pass rushers for Texas. And maybe that could be something, maybe not a concern, but at least an issue. Maybe not, maybe it could be something that they need to address. Maybe there's something that needs to be at least if you're a coach, it needs to be something you have contingency plans with and make sure you have options, essentially solutions to that potential problem. If it's not a problem, but maybe a potential problem, you'd have solutions ready to go. Contingency plans. Like I said about if you can't find a good field corner, hey man, move Jahdae Barron out there, go 3 safeties. Like just make sure you have potential contingency plans in place. Give yourself options. I saw this. Texas allowed 19 sacks last season. And I went back and watched every last one of them. Yep. I went back and watched every last one of them. And something struck me. There was a pattern. There was a trend. And there wasn't any noticeable concept that Texas had problems with or that Texas could be exploited with over the sample size of the entire season. That I didn't notice anything like that. But the Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Serena Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size. But I did notice a way that Baylor, and you got to give props to Dave Aranda. He's considered a defensive genius. He's got a brilliant defensive mind. I did notice a way that Baylor specifically was able to pressure Quinn Ewers, but also confuse the blocking schemes of the offensive line. So no other, there are other obviously teams that were able to get to the Texas quarterback and they were able to pressure Texas quarterback. But like I said, there was no noticeable pattern or trend of something that stood out that was disproportionately successful or effective against Texas, except in that Baylor game. So when I went and looked at the Baylor game, because Texas allowed 5 sacks in the Baylor game. So that was also the most sacks they allowed in any game, which makes sense. As to them coming up with something. And they had a lot of sample size, so it makes sense. They had the entire season, right, to kind of gather intel and data as to what would be the most effective concepts to pressure Texas's quarterback. And one thing they did a lot of, and this is something I actually brought up because I've noticed it too, even last season. And I think it's not just Texas. I think it's just a great way to pressure any opposing quarterback. When they go what they call amoeba fronts, an amoeba front are ghost fronts. I've heard them described with both terms. That's when you go with everybody lined up on the line of scrimmage. Some guys in a 2-point stance, some guys in a 3-point stance. And I think they call it an amoeba front because it can evolve and turn into a lot of different things. It's called the ghost front because it can force the opposing quarterback to see ghosts as in regards to who's coming and who's not. And oftentimes these are associated with, these fronts, this front presentation is associated with what they call simulated pressures. Now, a simulated pressure is essentially a 4-man pressure. It's not a blitz. I classify blitz as 5 or more guys. To me, that's a blitz. You got 5 or more guys. I'm sure other coaches have different definitions. Just for the sake of this conversation, that's my definition of a blitz. Other than that, you're talking about 4-man rush, 3-man. That's just pressures. That's just pressure. And a simulated pressure makes it look like it's a blitz, but it's actually just going to be 4 men coming, and you just don't know where those 4 guys are coming from. All right. Randall was the highest paid DC in LSU, I believe. Yeah, he's legit. He's a real deal. And a head coach, he's still learning on the job as a defensive mind. He'll always present the offense with problems, and the offense must come up with solutions. So out of the 5 sacks, they used either an amoeba front or ghost front and or a simulated pressure on all 5 of the sacks. They either lined everybody up on the line of scrimmage, and it was a simulated pressure, which means they dropped. Let's say they lined 7 guys up on the line of scrimmage, and they would drop 3. Maybe the 3 would be dropped from the interior. Maybe they would be dropped sporadically from around the front, but they would only end up rushing 4. Or they would run that amoeba front, that ghost front, and then they would end up blitzing, and they would rush 5. They end up blitzing. Or they easily have some version of a simulated pressure, which looks like they were about to blitz, and then they would end up with just 4 guys rushing, but it could end up being an off-ball linebacker. It could end up being a nickel in addition to a D tackle and a D end, and then maybe they could drop another end, or they could drop an outside linebacker. The front would just look really different. And you had no idea where the pressure was coming from. That's why they call it the simulated pressure. You have no idea where that pressure is coming from. And in addition to the simulated pressure concept, to further confuse the blocking schemes, like I said, they would line up that ghost front, that amoeba front, where, all right, we got 7, 8 guys all lined up on the line of scrimmage. All right. And you got to you offensive lineman got to figure out who's coming and who ain't. And you basically want to adjust on the fly because you're setting the pass protection or sliding the pass protection based on who you think is coming. You don't know who's coming when they line them up like that. You really don't. And the quarterback's going to be responsible for the free rusher. So if it's a free rusher, got to get the ball in hands, but he doesn't know where that free rusher is coming from either. And so it presents a bit of a problem. And Dave Aranda figured it out. He's like, oh no, we're going at Texas. Lots of confusion up front to confuse the blocking schemes. Basically creating chaos. What a defense wants to do is create chaos. All right. And then and that's a good point, Cotton. They cross your face, hit them. Yeah, that's if you want to kind of zone it up, and maybe that's how they could try to do it. But I don't know. I'm just saying that they need solutions for that because they were caught off guard by it in that last regular season game of the season. And that's why I think they decided, we're just going to run the football. Like we can't remember they just ran the football to win that game at the end. In the entire second half, they just ran the rock. and a big part of them just running the rock is they wanted to take the ball out of Quinn Ewers' hands, not just because of Quinn Ewers, but also because the offensive line couldn't really decipher the fronts and the pressure packages. All right. So that's a big part of it too. So that's what I noticed. And in Washington was able to get pressure on Texas too, but they did it in more traditional means. They didn't really get exotic with anything, and maybe they just didn't need to. But Baylor definitely found something. Dave Aranda found something, and I'm not the only one looking at it. Trust me, every team that plays Texas looking at it. You know who's looking at it? Nick Saban's looking at it. Nick Saban's looking at it. So they better solve it. They better figure it out. Right now, they got an issue with simulated pressure. Issei says simulated pressure and zone blitzes are always going to be a problem for a young O-line, young quarterback. I don't think that's necessarily a scheme problem, but it does attack your recognition. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's Texas specific. I think that's a problem for any team. That's what I said. I think that's just the way I would attack almost any scheme, because I'm looking to cause confusion up front and confuse blocking schemes and distort the pre-snap read of the quarterback. Like I said, but if this is not something they fix and address, teams, they're going to start the season doing it. Last season, teams didn't do it to the end of the season. Like you get in a gratuitous amount of it with Dave Aranda at the end of the season, but you don't get. You had 19 sacks. 7 of those came from either a simulated pressure or those amoeba ghost fronts I'm talking about. Like I said, 5 of those were Dave Aranda. So nobody early on figured it out. So I know you're talking about where young O-lines, they struggle with that. Yeah, they do, but other defensive coordinators didn't do it. They knew those guys were young. They knew they were freshmen on the O-line. They didn't do it. So I'm telling you, they're going to do it. Baylor showed them something. They're going to do it. Other teams just did not do it. And they didn't do it with the frequency that Dave Aranda do it, and they didn't do it with the effectiveness that Dave Aranda did. In Texas, the only reason Texas solved it was they just ran the ball. They didn't actually fix the problem. They didn't go on the sideline and make adjustments to it. The adjustment was, you know what? We're abandoning the pass because we can't block them. So let's just run the ball. And when you got Bijan and Rojo, right? What is it? Occam's razor. The simplest solution is always the most obvious solution. That's the simplest solution. It's the most obvious one. There you go. It was just, hey, let's just go with it. Bijan and Rojo. But you don't have that. You don't have that crutch. You don't have those training wheels. So that's, to me, just I'm pointing. I point out to you guys what I watch. I watch the film, so y'all ain't got to. And I'm telling you, it's an issue. And if Bama ends up getting 5-6 sacks in that game, and they all come on simulated pressures and amoebas, I'm gonna come on here and I'm gonna say, now we talked about this. So if we notice it, then they got coaching staff, support staff that's supposed to notice it too. And I'm going to be really upset. I'm going to scream and yell a lot. Because it shouldn't catch Texas by surprise. When you self-scout, and I'm sure there's a lot of self-scouting going on, all right, then, all those special assistants of the head coach, they should be looking at this kind of stuff too. You got some really good special assistants to the head coach that are happening. So there you go. That's something to keep in mind with Texas and the offensive line. I mean, think about it. This happens, right, in football. This happens in football. There is currently right now a blueprint developing on how to attack and how to expose and how to exploit Steve Sarkisian and the Texas offense. Now, it's not a very detailed scouting report and blueprint, but there are trends and there are patterns and there are different concepts that have been disproportionately effective versus Sark's, and now you have to just compile the list of them, and I give a lot of them. And like I said, it's not a lot, it's not a long list, but there is probably a way you should construct your game plan and build your game plan to be most effective versus Sark. There's like a kind of a checklist, and we've gone through it. Matter of fact, we come up next, I can kind of go through it. One of them is you should run a lot of simulated pressure, because Sark's going to give you time to get to the quarterback. How do you know that? Because he's going to run a lot of deep vertical routes downfield. Deep vertical routes downfield take time to develop. Time to develop means I got time, all right, to work out a lot of different pressure packages. And that's why I would run lots of twists and stunts, lots of games up front. He's going to give you time to run them. It further confused the blocking scheme. So on top of running amoeba and ghost fronts to confuse the blocking scheme so that they can't really designate who's coming as a free rusher, on top of that, and using simulated pressure, then you run twists and stunts and games up front. He's going to give you time because he doesn't like quick game and short game. He's a big game hunter. And sometimes in football, you don't play the hand, you play the man, baby. You watch the Washington game in the Alamo Bowl, defensive coordinator said Sark doesn't have the patience to march down the field using quick game and short game. He doesn't have the patience. So he backed his corners up. He knew that Texas didn't have a run game without Bijan and Rojo. He's got a defensive front that's pretty damn good. Stop the run nationally with the defensive front, back the corners up, and rally to the football when they do throw the ball underneath. But don't give him the deep ball because Sark is going to chase that deep ball. He's already told you, I'm chasing the deep ball. We're going to get it. And you can keep him from connecting on the deep ball. He gets anxious. He gets antsy, and he doesn't have patience. As that defensive coordinator from Washington said, he's not going to march down the field with 5-yard completions and 3-yard completions. He's not going to do it. He's going to take a shot. And when he takes his shot, just make sure he doesn't complete it. It's a low percentage throw. 27% of their deep passes they complete. That's a low percentage throw. Even lower for Texas. Gets them behind the chains. Don't play the hand, play the man. That's part of the blueprint, right? Part of the blueprint, like I said. And also, confuse the offensive line schemes. You want to run twists and stunts up front, amoeba and ghost fronts. And you want to make sure you're running a lot of simulated pressure. Simulated pressure works because you don't want to blitz a lot because they got really good skill guys. Texas has really good skill guys. And you don't want to leave too many of your guys out there on an island. So simulated pressure almost works as well as actual blitzes because the offensive line, you're going to get a free rusher because they're going to miss somebody. They're going to miss a rusher. That's part of it too. And you guys already know, I told you, 3 high, 3 down. If you don't run the 3 high, 3 down versus Texas, then you ain't paying attention. You ain't watching a film. You ain't doing your homework. Sark's offenses, when they face a 3 high, 3 down defense at Texas, they are scoring 9 fewer points per game. And if you juxtapose the traditional 2 high and single high defenses versus offensive productivity versus 3 high defenses, you're talking about more than 2 touchdowns fewer per game for a Sark offense. If you're running just a 2 high, single high, then you're doing it wrong. Even if you use it just for Texas, you shouldn't even if Texas is not, even if Texas is, your opponent just for that week, and you're not going to use it all throughout the season, it's worth breaking out for Texas. I always said Texas should use it. It is Sark's schematic kryptonite. I know how I actually did some research on how I would attack it if I was Sark. And I think he's actually making decisions that lead me to believe that he is on the same track that I was on. I haven't heard from Sark or talked to Sark about it, but I think he's on the same track of how to solve the 3 high, 3 down. But that's also part of it. You throw that on there too. You got to survive the script. We know that. Survive the opening script. That's the first 20 plays. And that's where Sark does a lot of his damage. If you can survive the opening script and not be down double digits, man, you're already ahead of the game. Because where he struggles is the chess match within the game. Texas outscored their opponents by 179 points in the first 3 quarters, but outscored by 12 points in the fourth quarter overtime last season. 2-5 in the 1-score games. In that last 2.5 quarters, that's where you beat Sark. Unless he evolves as a coach and becomes a coach, a chess master that can win that chess match within the game. Give his team a schematic, tactical, and a strategic advantage. Got to be able to do that as a coach, no matter how talented your team is. So you know that. That's on the script too. Something else on the script. I would, honestly, you throw it out there. You go with, on the outside, you can hold the Texas receivers, basically. I wouldn't play a lot of bump and run. I'd probably have them off. Like I said, you have them off because Sark's not going to stick with the quick game. He's a big game hunter. He don't like small game. He don't like doves and quail. He's looking for that big game on the African plains, baby. Taken down. He wants to mount that damn head on his wall of some exotic African game because he's taking shots. And we know that about him. Right? You also flat-foot read third downs. You flat-foot read the third downs. Because if his history will show you anything, like he did versus Oklahoma State, those 9 deep balls and the 14 overthrows versus Oklahoma State this past year, the reason he was so insistent on doing that is because they flat-foot read third downs. Oklahoma State's got the best third down defense in the Big 12, arguably in the country in the last 3 years. They've been top 5 in the country, number 3 last year and the year before that, and I believe in 2020 they were number 1. Started with Jim Knowles, who's not Ohio State as the defensive coordinator. And part of their defensive philosophy is we're going to flat-foot read them third downs. Hopefully it's third long, but if not, we flat-foot and read it. We're going to dare you to throw it over our head. If you want to go and throw the low percentage throw, go right ahead. That's a low percentage throw. And low percentage route, you throwing deep. If you complete it, great. But my DBs are really good, and we got a center fielder that will make life tough on you. Much easier for you to throw it underneath, which most offenses are designed to do. Most offenses on third and 6, they're designed to get the first down. They're not calling a play for a 20-plus yards down the field when it's a 3rd and 4, a 3rd and medium. They got plays designed to get 3rd and medium. But Sark, psychologically, we know he wants the deep ball, and they baited him. They baited him. It's like, nah, we go, because they flat-foot read everything. He knows that. And Sark kept thinking to himself, well, if they're going to flat-foot read it, I'm throwing deep. We're going to complete one of these. Because they flat-footed on these third downs. They flat-footed on a lot of these. They're trying to rally to the football and dare you to throw it right at the sticks. You throw it right at the sticks, they make a play on it because they're literally standing on the sticks. You throw it right before they right to the football, and they're great tackles in the open field. You throw it deep, okay, great. We may be a little bit behind in separation, but you better make sure you're perfect. And if you're not, waste it down. They gambled. You got to gamble a little bit. Defense, you got to gamble a little bit these days. You know what I mean? You got to take a risk somewhere. And that's where they decided to put their risk. And it worked. And Sark kept falling for it. He threw deep versus Oklahoma State more than any other game in Big 12 play last season. Actually, in any game last season, period. Because he kept chasing that deep ball. And you can get Sark chasing that deep ball, you already have the game because he's going to chase it like Pookie from New Jack City. Oh, I need that deep ball, baby. I need it. He needs it. And the Washington defensive coordinator literally said he ain't got the patience to march down the field 75, 80 yards, throwing underneath passes. Not this dude. And he was right. That takes evolution by Sark. I need him to grow as a coach. Hell, they're going to give you the underneath. Take it. Take it. You know what I mean? But he's chasing that deep ball. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Please stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to. That's what the short, quick game and the intermediate game is for Sark. He's chasing waterfalls. That's the deep ball. Don't chase it. You'll get it. Don't chase it. And he chased it in that game. And what you want to do is get him to chase it. Washington did it one way. Oklahoma State did no way. You want to get him to chase it. And that's, like I said, you play the man and not the hand. And I think that's why Sark's got to grow as a play caller. That's why he's got to get better. These are all, like I said, these are things I've given to you guys. I'm giving you all this information. These are like I said, these are just concepts that I've tracked that work well against Texas. And there are other ones too. But it won't work well if Sark evolves. Yeah, take the 4-yard. I agree. Take the quick hitch. Take the quick slant. Take it. Sark ain't going to take it. Not for long. Not for long. Y'all know that. We know that. Y'all know this. You know him by now. Don't act like you don't. Hey, Brian, thank you very much for the love. I appreciate that. So that to me, just getting to it. Trey says, hey, Rod, is Sark the type of coach that welcomes outside input, or is he I know the best type of guy? No, he isn't. He's an outside input guy. Give Sark a lot. No, he's brought in special assistants from Gary Patterson to Paul Chris, former head coaches. Joe DeCamillis now, Payam Sadat. I'll admit, he seems to be egoless in that respect. He's bringing in people that are going to help him. He's bringing in guys that are going to help him out and help him evolve as a coach. And I'm hoping that's why he's made it basically a think tank. We're going to make it a think tank around here. And we're going to figure out a way to solve all of these issues that are keeping us from bringing Texas back. Remember, Sark has said, and I love his quote, when he was asked what's holding Texas back from achieving all of its goals, he said, it's us. If we don't accomplish our goals, it'll be because of us. We're the ones holding us back. Essentially, that's what he's going to say. And yes, I think Sark is easier to work with. People like Sark. To Shaw's point, Sark must have a magnetic personality. Players like Sark, coaches like Sark. Everybody likes Sark. Right? Everybody liked Charlie Strong too. It's okay. I mean, that doesn't make you great at your job just to be liked. There are a lot of a-holes that are really good at their jobs and professions. So Sark is good. He's good right now. He's winning. He's above average. But at Texas, above average ain't enough. We need Sark to become good to great, and we need him to do it this season. That's it. That's what it comes down to. Really good coaches win at least 60% of their games. If you don't win 60% of your games, you can't even get into the Hall of Fame. Right now, they won't even let Mike Leach in potentially because he's won 59.5% of his games. Everybody's like, y'all better round the hell up because your Hall of Fame is trash if it ain't got Mike Leach in it. And I agree, it's trash without him. Point is, though, if you ain't winning 60% of your games, that's the baseline. That's the base benchmark for being a good coach. Sark's at about 55. Round up to 56%. That's okay. That's above average. That's okay. But you're at Texas. That's okay if you were somewhere else. You're at Texas. So this season, he needs to shift that narrative. When Sark faces a coach that wins at least 60% of his games, he has about a 40% win percentage, right around there. When he faces a coach that wins fewer than 60% of his games, he's at around 75, a little over 75% win percentage. Big difference. Why? Because those coaches who win at 6% of their games, they're chess masters. They can win the chess match within the game. Right now, Sark can win the battle of game plan and preparation, and he's brilliant at it. He's great at it. But unfortunately, that's a quarter and a half of football. And you still got 2.5 quarters left. And Sark, those 2.5 quarters, that's where games are being lost for Sark, because I think that's where he's losing ground and he's being outwitted in the chess match within the game. That's where it's happening. Sometimes it happens from the jump. TCU game was just bad game plan, terrible game plan. But for the most part, we've had Sark come up with very innovative game plans, and then he loses ground after he's got to operate off script, and he's got to, at that point, counter the adjustments by the opponents. And he hasn't been able to do that quickly enough. He's done it, actually. I can document where the adjustments have been made. Just doesn't do it quickly enough. You only got 2.5 quarters after that script's done to go win that game. And sometimes he makes those adjustments like in the fourth quarter, and it's already a little late. Did that in the TCU game, made the adjustments a little bit too late in that TCU contest. I think that cost him a little bit. Hell, even in the Washington game, made some adjustments, had a counter ready to go, but it was a little bit too late. Ended up losing that game. And if he'd have made it a little bit earlier, maybe he'd have given his team a better chance to win. Now, we're just talking about 2 games there, but 2 games different between 8 wins and 10 wins and going to a Big 12 title game and playing in the Big 12 title game. It's a game of inches. And I think for Sark this year, 2-5 in one-score games, got to flip that to 5-2. So, yeah, I think Sark this year, it's one of those seasons where the narrative about him becomes, I think it becomes something either way that ends up becoming the mainstream narrative about him. Like it goes from being the narrative that one side or the other was talking about to being the narrative that everybody believes about Sark. And I don't know what it's going to be. We have no idea what it's going to be. We think and hope it'll be the narrative that Sark is a championship caliber coach. He went to Texas and was able to bring Texas back to championship level competition and on their way to heading to the SEC. And Sark is a great coach, and he's on his way to proving that. Or it'll be Sark's an underachiever. The goals and the expectations are concrete. Concrete. You were picked by the coaches. You were picked by the media, the coaches poll and the media poll, the USA the AP poll. You were picked by the media, Big 12 preseason media poll to win the Big 12. Everybody's picked Texas to be the best team in this league. And this ain't 2008 Texas, 2008 Big 12, where you have really good teams. You have multiple top 10, top 15 teams to contend with. That is not the case. You probably got one other team maybe that cracks the top 15 in those polls. Everybody assumes Texas is and will be the most dominant team in the Big 12. If they're not the best team in the Big 12, they clearly underachieved, and it's a disappointing season. Is it a failure? No, it's not a failure. But the expectation is they're the best team in the Big 12. And what could be holding them back? I'll ask you guys this. Texas, this is the best Texas team since when? Since when? High expectations? Thank you, Michael. Hey, any questions you got, throw them out there. No, seriously, that's the question I have. Michael, much love, baby. Much love. This is the best Texas football team since. Are we going all the way back to 2009? Is this the best Texas team since 2009? I'm asking. I really would like somebody to throw it out there. East A says most talented team since 2005. CB says your 0-1 team. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, when's the last time we had a team this talented? It's a really talented team. I think it is the most talented team since 2009. And 09, by the way, not as talented as 08 to East A's point. That was a really talented team in 08. It was more talented than the 09 team. And A. Bull said, I think it's better than 2018. It is. Because remember, 2018 was a surprise. You know, Tom Herman came in 2017. 2018 was a surprise. We didn't expect Bam Bam Sam in 2018's Texas football team to surprise us in that way. When they beat Oklahoma in the manner in which they did in the Texas OU game, I think that's when Longhorn fans started thinking to themselves, whoa. We might have something. Remember, Sam started out shaky that year. Did they lose to Maryland? Did we lose to Maryland again? Back-to-back years? Oh. The jet sweep. Couldn't stop the jet sweep. Yeah, it's just, you might be talking. I mean, I'm with you. CB says, I compare this team to your early 2000s teams. Young talent all over the place. You're right. We did. And that's a good point about maybe you're looking at the CB. It's a great point, like Mac's trajectory. Right? Mac came in 98. So you got 98, 99 in that 2000 year. And by 2000, we had that number one class in 99, and we had Sims and C-Red. And then after that, you're bringing in those young wide receivers in that 2000 class. And now you get those because they want to play with a young Chris Sims. And so maybe to that point, yeah, in 01, by the time we had reached 01, we were ready to peak. We should have played and won championships in 2001. We played for a Big 12 title. We should have won it. And we should have won it. And we should have, remember, if we win that Big 12 title in 01, we're playing for a national title. We were that good. We were that talented. We were. That's why we were a disappointment. We were. I'll admit that. 11 games, won 11 games, still disappointing team. The Maryland games. No, I forgot all about them. I won't even mention the Maryland games no more. It's like, oh, remember that? Oh, I don't think Longhorn fans they never forgave Tom Herman for the Maryland games. Those Maryland losses were just embarrassing. And remember the second one, was after they had a player, like a tragedy on the team with the players. They had dismissed the coach. It was, who was the offensive coordinator? I forget. I want to say it was like Matt Canada or something. I could be wrong about that, but they had no business beating Texas in that game because they had so many distractions happening. So many distractions. And still found a way to beat Texas. And I don't even know if that team had a bowl game. That was a bad Maryland team that it was DJ Durkin. Yeah, that's right. He was dismissed. Yep, you're right about that. Oh, man. That's crazy. Okay, anyway, I apologize for getting sidetracked. My point is, this is the best team Texas has since they were prior to the the last 13 years. Prior to the last 13 years where Texas has been the biggest underachiever in college football. Let's be honest. If we're going to be really good this year, now we can be honest about where we've been, right? This is the year that Texas is back. The John Wick mentality. They keep asking John Wick, is he back? They keep asking Texas, are you back? If Texas is back, all right, let's have the real conversation. There is no college football program that has underachieved more in the last 13 years than Texas. Yeah. That's the reality of it. And this is the redemption year. And Texas, thank you, CB, longest drought in school history without a conference championship. Yeah, because a school like Texas shouldn't go this long without a conference championship. You shouldn't. You're Texas. You have lots of resources, lots of advantages, great players in an amazing city, one of the top 5 best cities probably for college football, in terms of just like the metropolis, the city itself, in all of college football. So you got a pop culture mecca that you call Austin, that you call home as well. I don't know. There's no reason for Texas to underachieve. You can hire the best coaches. That's why people mock Texas and talk a lot of trash at Texas. They hate us because they ain't us, but also it's a program that underachieves a lot. And this year, that cannot be the story. And yeah, props to CDC. CDC did a great job, really getting the BBs back in the box. And that goes to the holy trinity behind the scenes, Kevin Eltife, Jay Hartzell. You got to give it that crew some credit. They've really kind of stabilized things behind the scenes at Texas. There was a lot of issues. The family was disjointed, as Mac Brown, the late great DKR, once told him, and Mac told us, you got to get the BBs in a box, man. You don't get the BBs in a box, you're going to be dealing with tons of, controversy. You'll be dealing with animosity and angst and all of these different things behind the scenes within the family. You get the BBs in a box. The family's united. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's got the same goal. Everybody, is united, unanimity. All right. Behind the scenes, that's when Texas is a force. And that's what the crew behind the scenes is trying to do. Okay. I guess I'll take a break. It's been a while since we took a break. We'll take a quick break. All right. We'll take a quick break. We come back. I got a topic that I want to get to. Because honestly, I just asked it about the Longhorns. I got the same question about the Cowboys. When was the last time the Cowboys were this good? Because they're very similar in terms of the expectations being clear and concrete. If the Cowboys don't make it past the divisional round this year, their season is considered a disappointment, maybe even a failure. It's not even, oh man, they can win 13, 14 games. If they win 13, 14 games and can't get past the divisional round, Cowboys fans are probably going to have the same opinion that it's a disappointing season. So that's how those fan bases are very similar and in a lot more ways. But this year, there are clear and, like I said, concrete expectations for both. And if they don't meet them, the Longhorns and the Cowboys, then both fan bases will be disappointed. Michael, I like this question. How does emptying the backfield on offense for Texas create problems for that 3-3 defense? It does. I think Sark knows that too. I think Sark knows it. If I have psychoanalyzed him correctly, I think he knows it. I figured out what I believe should be Texas' strategy versus the 3-high, 3-down defense, which is Sark's kryptonite. If we got time today, I'll go over it. If not, we went over it thoroughly in one of the previous shows. You got to kind of go back and kind of track through it. All right, I went through it, but if I got time, I'll get into that. All right, we come back. Let's take a quick break. Come back. We'll talk some Cowboys. Then we'll get back to Longhorn conversation. All of your discussion on the chat. We'll do all that and more when we come back right here on the Rodcast in 3, 2, 1.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback focuses on one of the biggest UT football stars of the last decade. Bijan Robinson was a 5-star prospect by rivals when he signed with the Longhorns, finishing as the nation's number 18 overall prospect, the second best prospect in the state of Arizona, and the number 1 running back in the country, according to Rivals.com. Upon retrospect, it's kind of amazing that former running backs coach Stan Drayton was able to land Robinson when you consider that Ohio State was perceived as a massive leader player for much of his recruitment. In fact, on the day he committed, Rivals.com recruiting analyst Adam Gorney told Orangebloods, quote, even after the Atlanta 5-star challenge, it almost felt like Ohio State was the foregone winner, Gorney said that day. But as it got closer, I think the realization that he would basically be going across the country to play football kind of set in. He really, really liked Texas and USC a lot, had connections to both schools, liked the staffs, and how they would use him, and wound up finding a school closer to home that he was very happy with. It wasn't until Robinson visited Texas on an unofficial visit for the spring game in April that Texas began to make it surge. By the time June rolled around, a couple of months later, the Longhorns had emerged as a team to beat in his recruitment. Robinson was a part of a 2020 recruiting class that finished 14th in the nation that year in the Rivals.com rankings, and what turned out to be the final full recruiting class for Tom Herman. A few years later, and there's not a ton of meat on the bone with respects to the elite prospects from that year outside of Robinson. Jake Majors and Jaron Thompson remain as a few of the higher ranked players in that class, but it's actually two of the lower ranked prospects in the class, Jahdae Barron and Jalen Ford, that have made the biggest impact as the class begins to wrap up its contribution to the Texas football program.
All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Got some time here. I want to get into some Cowboys, some NFL discussion just really quickly. Cowboys, couple of things. Jason Peters, who played for the Cowboys last season and was one of their starting offensive linemen for a little while when they ended up having all the injuries on the offensive line, played for the Eagles for many years. This will be his 20th year, I believe. But he was able to fill in for the Cowboys, played some guard for him, played some tackle for him, and he's a guy that can move around. He says he wants to play another year. The Cowboys should definitely they should sign him. They should sign that dude. They need offensive line depth right now. They don't have any. I know they think Matt Forniak and Josh Ball could be the answer if they have any issues at guard. Just got Zach Martin back. That's a good thing. They got Tyler Smith. He's fantastic. He can play guard or tackle, but he's going to play tackle for him. They got healthy Tyron Smith, but Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Serena Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size, but I think we should assume that Tyron Smith may not make it through an entire season, and you need an insurance policy behind him. And the insurance policy you may need behind him, I think, could be Jason Peters. He was with you last season, so he knows the offense, he knows the personnel, he knows the players, so he'll be comfortable there. And he's an old head, so he knows what he's coming in for. He said he's got no ego about starting. He doesn't care about starting. You're bringing him there just in case there's an injury, and there's an injury. It'll probably be Tyler Smith that moves from guard to tackle because they got Terrence Steele and then they got Tyron Smith. If they move, if something, let's say Tyron Smith ends up getting injured, they'll move Tyler Smith out there, and you can move Jason Peters to guard. Maybe he played left guard last year when they moved Tyler Smith out there to left tackle. So it can work for the Cowboys. I'm sure it'll be cheap too. I mean, there's no way he's gonna be trying to break the bank, and he probably wants to, be in a place where he's comfortable, like the Cowboys where he was last season. So keep that in mind, Cowboys fans. You might see that. Speaking of the Cowboys, man, there's a story that I read that I think is really interesting, and I think it's Jory Epstein. I want to give her credit. She claims she's talked to the Cowboys players and talked to the Cowboys coaches. And one of the secrets to that Texas Coast offense, yet Tyron hasn't played a full season in 6 years. Exactly. Even more reason, Rick, to go get an insurance policy right away. And that's one you had last year. It would work. And you still have your young guys you're developing, but that's something that really could end up hurting, the Cowboys. Sorry for a minute. So I think for sorry if I said Longhorns, I meant Cowboys. Got Longhorns on the brain. But I think the Cowboys need to do that right away because somebody's going to pick them up. Offensive line depth in the preseason is probably the biggest indictment on the lack of O-line depth in the NFL, because second-team O-lines in the NFL are just horrid. They're bad. There's like a crisis in the NFL. Coaches talk about O-line depth. I mean, hell, you could argue Patrick Mahomes, the best football player on the planet, looked like a pedestrian version of himself, looked like a Clark Kent version of Superman when he played in the Super Bowl versus the Bucs when he had multiple injuries on the O-line, because the drop-off is so significant. Honestly, in terms of other than quarterback, there's probably not a more significant drop-off at a position from first line starter to backup than there is from O-line. And you could argue across the board that O-line actually may be a bigger drop-off from first line starter to backup than quarterback. I'm sure center, you definitely can make that argument at center. And probably a left tackle, considering how the elite skill set of a left tackle these days too. So anyway, Cowboys need to do that and do it with the quickness. But what Jory Epstein was talking about, the Texas Coast offense, one of the West Coast principles that they're trying to utilize is syncing up wide receiver steps on routes with the footwork of the quarterback, which I assumed a lot of teams already did, but apparently the Cowboys weren't doing a lot of this. I know some teams at college that sync up footwork of the wide receivers synchronize it with the footwork of the quarterback in terms of the steps they're supposed to decelerate and accelerate and cut off of on their routes. Sometimes they're syncing it up based on the 3-step, 5-step, 7-step drop of the quarterback. Well, the Cowboys now are emphasizing that. I'm sure they were doing it, but maybe now they're emphasizing it, that every wide receiver should know on every offensive play, every route combinations, what the quarterback steps are. Because they think one of the reasons that the quarterback, Dak Prescott, and the wide receivers were so off, and it caused him to lead the league in interceptions, had 17 of them, that they were so off, is because at times the wide receivers were cutting routes short, right? Trying to, basically, if a DB had a certain depth that DB was at, and maybe there was a certain route depth that wide receiver was supposed to get to, and that conflicted with the depth of the DB, and he thought, well, I'm not going to run right to defensive back. I'm going to cut my route short, maybe a yard and a half, maybe 2 yards, and you think, oh, that's not a big deal. Well, if Dak is throwing to a spot, and that spot is 2 yards right ahead of the wide receiver, then, there could be that miscommunication end up being a very, very crucial turnover. And so they're trying to synchronize the wide receiver's steps with the footwork of the quarterback. Try to make sure that guys are in their breaks at the right time, getting out of their breaks at the right time, and Dak is delivering the football on time. Some people say, man, that's simple. They should have been doing it anyway. Yeah, but if it'll help Dak and the receivers be, on the same page, and it'll help the timing and the synchronicity of that entire group, then, hey, it doesn't matter. It's better to figure it out now than have to worry about that down the line. Speaking of NFL, I know we're not in the season, so we're not going to talk preseason, I promise you. The Browns were in action last night. The Browns ended up playing, I believe, the Eagles in preseason. And oh man, shout out to my man Moro Ojimo, who ended up leaving that game. And I think he ended up being taken out on stretcher, but I believe everything's okay. I think there was an update that everything's okay, and that they're going to take precautions with him, but that it's not bad. And Bijan, first game was a Falcon today. Yeah, I want to watch that. I don't know how to. I guess NFL Network replays the games, but I do want to see. Bijan says he's going to play. I think that I saw a quote that the media says he's going to play in this preseason game. I do want to watch that. But speaking of the Browns, just real quick, I won't spend a lot of time on this. I want to get back to the Longhorns. Ojimo has a concussion. Thank you, CB. But I think he's going to be okay, because I remember they thought for a while it could be scary because he ended up having to be carted off and all that. So it looked bad, but not as bad. So I'm happy my man Ojimo is going to be okay, just in concussion protocol. And I think anyway, he's going to end up being a project of the Eagles. That's the deepest D-line in the NFL. And they've expanded the practice squad rules, so now guys can stay on the practice squad longer, and you can be older on the practice squad. When I was there, they were really rigid about practice squad and how you can age yourself out of the practice squad. So they obviously expanded those rules a little bit. He can be a practice squad guy for a while now, make more money, and he's the project of a team like the Eagles who invest in D linemen. So I think he's in a good spot. Jared says Cleveland's defensive scheme looks phenomenal. The defense does look nice. The Philadelphia Georgia Eagles. You're right about that, CB. Hey, that Georgia defense is one of the greatest defenses in college football history. Ain't nothing wrong with just plucking guys from that defense. They obviously like Kirby Smart's developmental track that he has his players on. But this is the thing about the Browns this year that's really, really interesting. And you guys let me know if you can think of a better example, or any example, rather. Guys, have we ever seen a player like Deshaun Watson? I'm a Texans fan, so a little personal. Like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. But think about the season he had in 2020, his last year playing prior to the off-the-field issues and the civil lawsuits and the allegations of sexual misconduct. And by the way, him boycotting his own team, the Texans. Prior to all that, Deshaun Watson had one of the greatest seasons in the history of the NFL for a quarterback. I'm not making that up. He was like a top 5 quarterback that year. I remember it because I was a Texans fan. And they ended up only winning like 4 games, so nobody cared about it and nobody paid attention. But that season, he ended up, I'll give you a couple of stats. According to Pro Football Focus that year, he had like the 19th best regular season grade ever, like of all quarterbacks in the history of Pro Football Focus tracking. He was one of 29 QBs to finish the regular season with a 90 passing grade, and the other 28 all started under center for franchises that finished 500 or better. At least they had a winning record. They did not have a losing record. He was the first quarterback that they had tracked that was among the 29 highest graded QBs in Pro Football Focus history that had a losing record. He was the only one that had a losing record. You go look at some of the other crazy stats from that season. Here's another one too. It was mind-blowing. That was after they traded DeAndre Hopkins. Right? Remember they traded for David Johnson. It was crazy. He led the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns, set franchise records. He became the first player on a team with at least 12 losses to lead the NFL in passing yards since Jeff George did it in 1997 with the Oakland Raiders. And he did it behind the worst O-line in the NFL potentially, because he had the second most sacks. He had been sacked the second most in the NFL. No DeAndre Hopkins, so no elite receiver. Sacked the most in the NFL. The run game was terrible. All right, the run game was bad. The defense was bad. They gained the second fewest yards on the ground that season, only 91 yards per game on average on the ground. They had the 30th ranked defense in the NFL that year. So the defense was poor. The running game was bad. No elite receivers or talent. He did have Brandon Cooks, so I can't say no. Brandon Cooks is still a really good wide receiver, and he had Will Fuller. So he wasn't bereft of talent. But that season, guys, he had a top 5 season for a quarterback in the NFL. How about this stat? Only 4 QBs in NFL history have finished a season with more than 4,500 passing yards, more than 30 touchdowns, and fewer than 10 interceptions, and an average of 8.5 yards per attempt. Peyton Manning did it in 2004. Aaron Rodgers in 2011. Matt Ryan in 2016. I believe there are MVP performances in there too. I want to say that Matt Ryan won the MVP in 2016. Peyton Manning in 2004. I'm not sure about Aaron Rodgers in 2011. And of those quarterbacks, the 4 quarterbacks that were able to meet that criteria, Deshaun Watson was the only one with a losing record. Matt Ryan did in 2016 with the Falcons went 11-5. Aaron Rodgers in 2011, Packers went 15-1. Peyton Manning in 2004, Colts went 12-4. The Texans lost 8 games that season in which Deshaun Watson threw 25 or more passes and had a passer rating over 100. Never before in NFL history had a quarterback lost more than 5 such games. Here's the point I want to get to. Have we ever seen a player that was, like I said, top 5 at one point in their prime? He boycotted the season and then ended up being suspended, had the issues. Does he ever get back there? I don't think we've ever seen a player that was close to elite or in the category for elite leave the sport, essentially, or at least not be allowed to play the sport for 2 years. He didn't play that last year in Houston. They traded him, and he had the suspension and the allegation. So I think he had 11-game suspension, something like that, something around there. Remember, Michael Vick had the arrest. Michael Vick had the arrest for dogfighting and all the controversy he went through. And I think he spent 9 months I'm not mistaken, in prison. And remember he had the trial and everything. So he was away from the game for a while. Mike Vick may be the closest thing to it. He left the game for a while. And I want to say maybe it was a little over a year. I don't know if it was 2 years, but he did come back and end up signing a big deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. That may be the closest example I can think of, but he didn't get back to prime Vic. Of course, he's not in prime Vic mode because, he lost those prime years. And especially at quarterback, where, Steve Sarkisian describes it as being a fighter pilot, where the cerebral part of the game, your mental acuity, your ability to process those really, all those different slivers of data in just microseconds and milliseconds. You have to lose some of that when you don't use it at all. I don't give a damn if you're practicing out there and, you're working out and throwing the reps. Reps are real football. Those are valuable. I can tell you as a guy that went to the NFL and had 3 shoulder surgeries, ended up getting hurt in back-to-back years, not being able to cultivate my craft. And more of my craft, yes, that's the mental part of it, but a lot more of it is the physical. And you watch the game and guys kind of pass you by when you can't work out and you're not really able to cultivate your craft. The game and players pass you by, and you can feel yourself losing ground. And Deshaun Watson has to feel that. You look at him now, he doesn't look like the same player. He definitely doesn't look like a guy that at one point had one of the greatest seasons for a quarterback in the history of the NFL. And that's one of the mysteries I'm watching this year is, can he get back to that? Can he get back to even close to it? It doesn't look like it right now, but he had it in him. I know, aside from the civil lawsuits and the allegations of sexual misconduct, all that aside, I'm talking about him as a player. It's unbelievable. I don't think we've ever seen a story quite like it. No, we haven't. I don't know if we definitely haven't. We've seen some that are, I guess, comparable. You said you got the Ricky Williams. It's a different position, but Ricky Williams, he retired for about maybe close to a year. I'm not sure exactly how. He left the game for a while. I think he retired for maybe that was a year for Ricky, something like that. Left the game, ended up coming back. And did he get back to his prime form? I'm not sure about that. I don't know if you ever do get back to your prime form. And when Cleveland gave him a fully guaranteed deal, shout out to David Mulligetta, also a lifetime Longhorn, who's I call the Johnny Cochran of the NFL. If you can get a dude with, I don't know, scores of allegations against him, a score or so of allegations against him of sexual misconduct and civil lawsuits also, and in the midst of that, get him a fully guaranteed deal while facing suspension, while in the midst of boycotting his own team. Oh, man, you're a hell of an agent. You're a super agent. And that's what Deshaun Watson got. So they paid him based on that season. That's why they paid him that money. Hell, that's he had a top 5 season, like a top 5 quarterback, and he was like 25 at the time. He was young in his prime. They figured if we get that Deshaun Watson, we'll be playing in a Super Bowl in a few years. They didn't get that Deshaun Watson. They didn't get that one. I don't know if that one ever comes back. I don't know if we've ever witnessed a player take that much time off and get back to their prime. I can't think of an example of it. Not in football. All right, there you go. Abel, I can't remember if Breeze was elite, but he got hurt, drafted a replacement, but all he did was get rejected by Saban and the Dolphins and turn New Orleans around after cleanup. That was big. You're right. And an injury, we can look at some guys who got injured, but man, I can't think of an example like that. And I'm not wishing ill will on Deshaun Watson or anything like that. I'm just observing. I'm a Texans fan, not a former Texans fan. I'm a Texans fan, and I remember that season. Nobody cares about it. Most of y'all didn't even know about that season because they went 4-12. It literally was it was an irrelevant season because it did not translate to wins on the field. But man, if that Deshaun Watson ever showed up for the Cleveland Browns, watch out in NFL because it was a phenomenal season. Okay. let's get to some Texas. Get back to some Texas football conversation. I want to get into, and this is something that we've talked about before with Texas. I want to get to talk about the offensive line a little bit and the running game a little bit too. I saw a stat that I'll share with you guys, and it's about yards before contact. And usually that's a stat that people, or at least analysts, data scientists, they like to give credit to the offensive line with that stat. Like, how good is your offensive line? How much room can they give you? How much space can they give you? How much space can they create even before the defense is able to contact them in any way? All right, create contact. What's up, Mr. 512? Appreciate you dropping in. All right. Texas last year, Texas offensive line, if you want to, go along with this stat and give credit to the offensive line for that stat, yards before contact per rush, 2 yards before contact per rush. That would be good for 7th in the Big 12 last season. Yeah. The leader was UCLA at 3.28 yards per rush before contact, and it was TCU was second. And then obviously the leading Big 12 team with 3.1 yards per rush before contact. It goes to something I've said before about this Texas offensive line this year. I don't know if the big issue, but to me, the big point of emphasis in the offseason definitely needed to be the run game and the offensive lines, their role in the run game and how you can infuse the run game with some juice, whether it be with innovation and creativity, or just with the offensive line, taking a step. The offensive line now becoming a dominant force. They weren't that last season, but they were young. And now they're more talented, and they bring back all the starters from last season. The hope would be that this offensive line with Texas, this offensive line, that they actually are able to create run lanes and compensate for the loss of Bijan and Rojo. Bijan and Rojo were, because we just gave you that stat about the offensive line or yards before contact per rush. And I think we all just take for granted how good Bijan and Rojo were after contact, because you weren't great. I just gave you the stat. You weren't great before contact. You were okay. Actually, not okay. You were below average. All right, you were 7th in the Big 12. And among Power 5 teams, Texas last season, yards before contact per rush, you were at 46th among Power 5 teams. So not great. But Bijan and Rojo were elite, extraordinary, spectacular at yards after contact per rush, and after basically those guys creating or forcing missed tackles. And I've given some of these numbers, but I'll give them to you again because they are mind-blowing in so many ways. Texas led the country in broken tackle rate on rushes. They were at nearly 28%. 28% of the runs, there was a running back breaking a tackle or forcing a missed tackle. Not surprising. Texas was 2nd in the country in yards after contact per rush. They were at 3.6. LSU was the only team ahead of them. So you're at like 40. You're at 46th in yards before contact per rush, and that's in the Power 5. But you were 2nd in the nation in yards after contact per rush at 3.6. Actually, 3.66. LSU was at 3.69. Just full disclosure. And you led the country in broken tackle rate. That's a lot of plays that would have been negative plays. That would have been plays that put Texas behind the chains, where Texas ended up on the positive side of the chains, ended up ahead of the chains, or ended up, with a first down. Hell, sometimes Bijan and Rojo broke the damn play and ended up with an explosive play. Harry says DJ Campbell at guard is going to be a big improvement over last year. We hope so. Shout out to N7 Gotti. Appreciate you. And Rick says the same thing about DJ Campbell. I think that may be a reason for the move. They need a road grader in there. They need somebody that's going to essentially, as Tom Herman used to say, move another human being against his will. And they didn't do that enough last year in the running game. We saw that in the bowl game. No Bijan, no Rojo, no training rules in the running game. And essentially, I think Texas averaged around less than 3 yards per carry as a team. That last year was more an indictment on Sark, in my opinion. That was an arrogant, lazy game plan. And I think he assumed Jonathan Brooks and Keelan Robinson, they'll run the same plays as Bijan and Rojo, and we'll be fine. Nah, that was a miscalculation. Bijan and Rojo are NFL running backs. And I'm not saying that Jonathan Brooks and Keelan Robinson are not NFL running backs, but Bijan and Rojo are special. I think they're both going to be starting running backs in the NFL at one point. And they can run any run play. Thank you, CB. Yes, that was a Coach Steven move. Yeah, that's what I call Coach Sark when he starts making, ill-advised decisions. So I'll put it like that. When he starts making some of these questionable decisions, that's Coach Steven, and we don't like Coach. Who gave Bijan the ball 12 times versus TCU in the biggest game of the year potentially? Who did that? Coach Steven. That wasn't Coach Sark. Coach Sark is smarter than that. Coach Sark way more savvy than that. That was Coach Steven. That was him. Who in the bowl game trying to run the same run plays you run with Bijan and Rojo with Keelan and Jonathan Brooks? That's a Coach Steven call, not a Coach Sark call. All right, Coach Steven actually started that game when he started yelling at that bowl official and cussing him out. That's not Sark. Sark's a lovable guy. Everybody loves Sark. Great personality, really amicable, outgoing. He's not the kind of guy that's just going to dog cuss some bowl official or some random bowl attendant, whoever he is. Official of some kind. No, he's not going to do that. Coach Steven will, because Coach Steven's got, he's got some issues. No, we like Coach Sark. So Coach Sark's our guy. That's the guy we hired. Coach Steven, that's like Fight Club. The Tyler Durden and the alter ego. That's the Coach Steven, Coach Sark thing. But we need Sark in his bag this year in terms of coming up with creative, innovative concepts to infuse juice into the running game. He didn't do that in the bowl game. That's why I think it was an arrogant game plan. He assumed, the running game is working really well this year. It'll work well. Yeah, it worked well with Bijan and Rojo. Bijan and Rojo, it works really well. Any running game will work well with them. Now you need to really cater and craft the running game to the skill sets of your players. And some guys are better in zone blocking schemes. Some guys are better in gap power blocking schemes. Yeah, you got to know that as a play caller. And I think last year in that bowl game, or at least, in the bowl game, Sark just assumed, the running game concepts, we'll just go off the most successful ones this season. And the ones that we have scouted and game planned will be most effective versus Washington. Yeah, but you did that with the sample size and data from a Bijan and Rojo running game. That ain't the running game no more. And I agree, boy, it was good to have that reality check from the bowl game. Like, no. You need to do something different. That's why he brought in Paul Chris. I think a big part of it was that slap in the face in the bowl game that hey man, we got to bring in some help, some support, literally support staff for the running game. And Paul Chris is known, from coast to coast as a guy that's a pioneer in the power running game. And Sark talks about the power running game a lot. So that's my big concern on offense, guys, is the run game. And I got a lot of faith in CJ Baxter, got a lot of faith in Jonathan Brooks, Keelan Robinson. I love Tashard Choice as a coach. So it's just more about it's unproven. It's not that they don't have the talent and the capability to balance the offense out. I think the identity of the offense will be the passing game. That's where all your best weapons are. JT Sanders, X-Men, A.D. Mitchell, Jay Witt, Quinn Ewers. That's where the money's going to be made, is in the passing game. But you got to have balance. And last year, like I said, one thing Sark took for granted, we all did, which is how damn good Bijan and Rojo were. Over the last 4 years, running backs with the highest missed tackle rate per attempt, Bijan Robinson, second, Rojo, fifth. As a matter of fact, if you look at just broken tackle rate over the last 2 years, Rojo is actually ahead of Bijan. And Bijan set the Pro Football Focus record in the college football era for forced missed tackles. So he forced more missed tackles than any other running back in the Pro Football Focus college football era. And yet Rojo, if you're looking at rate of forced missed tackles, he actually was better at breaking tackles than Bijan. You had the two best backs in college football, and maybe the two best backs potentially in the last 5 years, and maybe even going back forward than that, at breaking tackles. And you had them in the same backfield. So I think it distorted Sark's view of the running game just a little bit. And I think that was exposed in the bowl game. Glad it was. I think he will rectify. I think that's why he brought in Paul Chryst. It's a big part of why he decided to bring in Paul Chryst. I mean, and Bijan's stats are just crazy. If you look at Bijan versus stacked boxes. A stacked box is a box where the defense outnumbers the offense. More defenders than blockers. That's basically what a stacked box is. Someone says 8 in the box. It usually might mean 8 in the box, but a stacked box just means more defenders than blockers. Bijan averaged 5.8 yards per rush versus stacked boxes. He averaged over 3 yards per rush on plays where he was hit in the backfield or at the line of scrimmage. So if you hit Bijan in the backfield, he still averaged 3 yards per rush being hit in the backfield. Boom, boom. So he would always almost get you back to the line of scrimmage at least or close to it. When you hit him in the backfield, you never got the, oh, man, now it's going to be 1st and 15. You know, oh, now it's going to be 2nd and 13, whatever it is. Now, I'm sure every now and then that did happen. For the most part, he kept you out of those situations, and so did Rojo. And now you got to figure out a way to manufacture that until the young bucks start to, get into their groove as runners, as ball carriers. Rojo averaged 4.2 yards after contact per carry, per rush. Bijan was at 4.1, so he was ahead of Bijan. That concerns me. It's just hard to replace that. And I know, Tashard Choice is recruiting like a mofo, man. He needs to give that wallet, like on Pulp Fiction that says bad mofo on it. Tashard Choice needs one of them wallets because he's a bad mofo, man, when it comes to recruiting running backs. But I do think for Texas, they need to, this season, find very creative ways to run the football. I just think they're just trying to line up and run it. And the O-line is going to be really talented. We talked about DJ Campbell taking one of those interior offensive line spots. He's a road grader. They're going to have the biggest offensive line in the Big 12. In fact, we can get into that next segment. The biggest offensive line in the Big 12. That's the big humans that Sark wanted. So he's got size and girth up front. That may help. But then again, it may not. It may not be enough to make the running game truly a threat. You're going to need creativity. You're going to need some innovation. And because last year, I think it was just carried on the shoulders of 2 great backs. And hell, and honestly, Sark, that was smart on his part to try to lean on those guys in the Baylor game, in the Iowa State game, in the Kansas game to win those games. Why not? Why work smarter? Why work harder when you can work smarter? And I think that's what Sark decided to do. This year, that's going to be a challenge, the running game potentially. JD says, Sark saying this is my kind of team, and we can't look past that. Doesn't mean we'll be the best team, but one he thinks will win a lot. No, listen, Sark's not shying away from the expectations. He has openly accepted that everybody's picking Texas to be the best team in the Big 12. And all the players expect for Texas to be the best team in the Big 12. So the expectation is clear. As long as Sark improves, but you got to improve on 8 wins last year. 9 wins won't be enough of an improvement for Longhorn fans. JD, they want to see improvement, and that improvement means double-digit wins and or competing for a Big 12 title. I think for Longhorn fans, that's clear improvement. If that doesn't happen, I think Longhorn fans are going to be upset. There's going to be a price to pay. Abel says Kristen Choice should be match made in heaven for a running game. I agree. I think, and then going out and getting Paul Chryst, that was That was a great move. That was a home run move by Sark. Back-to-back years. You got GP the first year, and then you bring in Paul Chris the second year. I think maybe they're still trying to bring in GP. They probably should. But I think for Paul Chris, and I'll get into this later too, I do think there's another motive on top of, having more ideas to help the power running game. I do think there's an ulterior motive for Sark, and I love it. I think it's brilliant. So we'll get into that too. Fresh Prince says, "You got any Don King Yellow Rose stories?" Yeah, I got some. I don't know if I should be telling them though, but I do got some. Don King was good to us, man. Don King was good people. We call it the flower shop, baby. Hey, Don King was good to us. I had a great time there all the time. I cannot tell you how many recruits that, hey, man, that want to go to the flower shop after we told them all about it. And, hey, they couldn't necessarily go then, but, hey, when it was like, hey, man, trust me, you come to Texas, the flower shop, it's all about it, man. It's all about the flower shop. So because I used to go there for lunch. I would end up having days where I would go to the flower shop multiple times a day. Yeah. I'd go there for lunch. And I'd see some other guys there. And then I'd go there, hang out a little bit, catch some of the scenery late in the day. It's one of those spots, man. It was a safe haven. You always know you'd be taken care of and you were safe in the flower shop. So, yeah, man, I got a lot of love for Don King. Oh, he was your guy. I know DK was your godfather. Hey, yeah, he was. Hey, that was a true OG right there, no doubt. I got much love for Don King. I always took care of your boy. As a matter of fact, I actually live in the same neighborhood, I think, with one of the managers that I remember back then. I'm not gonna be dropping names, but I think I see him when I'm driving. But I need to go back there and actually holler at some of the people there, because I believe there's a couple of guys who are like managers there still work there, and they were just good guys, man. They were just good people. So I enjoyed my time there, and thank you, JD. I appreciate you reminding me about my time at the flower shop, man. It was a good times. I hadn't been in a while. I can't think the last time I went to a gentleman's club, actually. That means it's been too long. I probably should just go for the hell of it, one of these days, and just drop by one, because I can't even think of the last time I've been to a gentleman's club. That's a damn shame. That's how I know I'm getting old, y'all. That is truly a mark of getting old. You should be able to remember the last time you tipped a lady on the stage. One time somebody dropped $1 bill. It's been so long, I'm not even sure if they have changed the traditions at the gentleman's club. Can I still go tip at the stage with $1? Is a lap dance still $20? Or has inflation hit the strip club? I love that inflation hasn't hit the strip club. I believe it's still $20 for a lap dance, and $1 will still get you a good, 30 seconds to a minute with the young lady on stage. There you go. Hey, inflation ain't hit every damn thing. I was not James Harden. I didn't make it rain very often. I did a couple of times when I first got paid in the league. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make it rain just for the hell of it. Now, I might make it sprinkle. They'd accept some change. I make it sprinkle. But yeah, man, I had a good time. Just reminded me about gentlemen's clubs back in the day. All right, we're up against it. I know we got to get out of here. So I appreciate all you guys and your participation on the show. Show's always fun, and it's fun because of you guys. As the season goes on, you guys know we're going to be breaking it down. We'll be running out of time, but I appreciate all of your input. You guys can always hit me up via Twitter too, at Rod Babers in the Twitterverse. It's just pretty simple. You can hit me up there, follow me there. I can throw out stats. You can ask questions, whatever it may be. But we'll be back on Monday, same time, same channel. Thanks to my man Blake behind the scenes, because Blake, he's the reason that the magic can happen. All right, he makes all of it happen behind the scenes. Probably the hardest working man on Orangebloods Live these days. Thank you to JD. Thank you to all you guys, CB and Rick and Abel and Fresh Prince. Thank you to all you guys, man. It's been really fun, and it goes by like that because time flies when you're having a whole lot of fun, and we have a whole lot of fun on the Rodcast. Everybody have a great weekend. Everybody have a safe weekend as well, and please stay cool out there. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll be talking about it right here on the Rodcast. I love you guys. I mean that.